There is a quiet math that runs in the back of many minds. You look at your modest salary, and you calculate what wealth would require, and the number always seems to belong to someone else's life. So you set the idea aside. You tell yourself wealth is for those with better jobs, luckier timing, or larger paychecks, and you simply try to get through the month. Today, I want to tell you how ordinary Japanese people, on completely ordinary salaries, have quietly turned modest income into lasting wealth, not through a secret opportunity, but through a philosophy so simple it is often overlooked entirely. Let me tell you about a woman named Emiko. Emiko worked for over 20 years as a receptionist at a small medical clinic in Sapporo. Her salary was never large. It never dramatically increased. Yet when she retired, she owned her small home outright, had savings that supported her comfortably, and never once needed to worry the way many of her higher-earning friends did. When people asked her secret, she never mentioned a stock tip or a lucky break. She spoke instead of her grandmother, who once kept a small clay jar on the kitchen shelf. Her grandmother used to say, "The jar does not care how much you place inside it. It only cares that you never forget to place something." Emiko didn't understand this fully as a child. As an adult, she realized her grandmother had given her the entire philosophy of wealth in a single sentence. This is the heart of how ordinary income becomes lasting wealth, not through the size of what is placed, but through the certainty of placing it without stopping. And to understand this fully, imagine a slow-growing tree, like the ones planted in old Japanese gardens. Such a tree is never rushed. No one waters it violently in the hope it will grow overnight. It is tended gently, consistently, season after season, and only after many quiet years does it become something people travel to see. Wealth, for the ordinary earner, grows exactly the same way. No single season creates it. Only the refusal to skip a season does. Here is what most people miss. They believe wealth requires a large, singular action, a big investment, a big raise, a big risk. So they wait for that large moment, and when it doesn't arrive, they assume wealth simply isn't meant for them. Emiko understood something different. She understood that wealth is rarely built by size. It is built by frequency. This matters more than most people realize, because the mind is not naturally patient with slow things. It wants to see results quickly, and when it doesn't, it often abandons the effort altogether. This is the common mistake, mistaking slowness for failure. But small, repeated action changes the mind itself over time. What begins as a discipline becomes, quietly, simply a part of who a person is. Emiko did not try to save. She was, in her own words, someone who never forgot the jar. So how did Emiko actually turn her modest salary into something lasting? She followed 3 grounded rules, practiced with quiet consistency. The first rule was the never-empty jar. Each payday, before anything else, she placed a small, fixed amount aside, never a large sum, never an amount that caused strain. The rule was not about the size. The rule was that the jar was never, under any circumstance, left empty for the month. This single, unbroken habit became the foundation everything else was built upon. The second rule was the seasonal review. 4 times a year, not constantly, not obsessively, Emiko looked gently at her spending and asked one honest question. What here no longer serves my life? She removed only what was clearly unnecessary, adjusted only slightly, and moved on. This calm, unhurried review, repeated every season without stopping, quietly refined her habits over decades. The third rule was the patient planting. Whatever grew in the jar beyond her immediate needs, she did not let it sit untouched. She placed it into something that could grow slowly on its own, modest, steady investments, chosen without excitement or fear, simply trusted the way one trusts a well-tended tree to eventually mature. None of these 3 rules ever asked Emiko to earn more, take large risks, or sacrifice her daily comfort. They only asked her to never forget the jar. By the time Emiko retired, many of her friends, who had earned considerably more, were still anxious about money, still waiting for a financial breakthrough that never quite arrived. Emiko, on her humble receptionist's salary, had already built the very security they were still hoping for. And here is the truth Emiko came to understand, one that took her decades to fully see. Wealth was never reserved for large incomes. It was reserved for those who refused to skip the small, quiet placements, season after season, year after year. Those who wait for a larger salary before beginning often wait their entire lives. But those who apply 1%, consistently and without stopping, eventually look back and find a tree they can no longer remember planting so small. You do not need a better job to begin. You do not need a bigger number, or the perfect year, or someone else's permission. You only need one small placement today, and the quiet promise to never leave the jar empty tomorrow. If Emiko's story resonated with you, consider subscribing to Will and Wisdom, so these quiet philosophies can find you exactly when you need them. And if you already have your own version of the jar, share it in the comments. Someone else may need the reminder today. In our next video, we will explore another timeless Japanese principle, one that teaches patience not only with money, but with the entire shape of a well-lived life. Until then, do not forget the jar. And do not stop.